Hi, I'm Hyla.
Hi, I'm Hindi. Welcome to Your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Torah's perspective on relationships.
Welcome, everybody. This is so exciting because this is the first time, Adina, I don't know if you know this, this is the first time we're interviewing someone outside of Relationshift on the podcast.
I did not know that. That's
Yes,
so
you
fun.
are a first. Yeah. Because usually we'll have like a coach, or we'll have a client, we'll have, I've interviewed Sargita, people who are affiliated,
Yeah.
and this is the first time we're doing like a co-op kind of experience where I did something with you, and then I was so excited to hear more. I'm just selfishly wanting to hear what you have to say. So I just want to introduce everybody. This is Adina Landa. She is a mother of 6, Baruch Hashem, K'nai Nahara B'li Hara, a shlucha in Northern California, and a Chabad mom coach. She started a membership called the Calm and Confident Chabad Mom Tribe because she believes we all need more real in our lives. More people telling their truths, owning their stories, being driven by their passions, living their dreams. I love that. She's overcome many of her own challenges and therefore feels super passionate about helping elevate Yiddish homes one home at a time so mothers could be more present, joyful, calm, and confident. I think we could stop there.
There you go. There's the whole podcast. You got it.
That's it. It was so exciting. So let me understand. From what it sounds, right? It's almost like all-inclusive because that's what a mom is, right? She's just like this all-inclusive. Meaning, I know you don't call yourself a parenting coach, but I'm sure you do a lot in the realm of parenting. And then you also do a lot in the realm of just self-actualization. So I actually would love, if you could, just describe like, what's your core philosophy? If you had an elevator pitch, what is it?
Yeah. Okay. The elevator pitch part is hard, but my core philosophy would be that I really believe that, as mothers, we're the Akara Sabayas. We're literally the foundations, and your foundation must be strong in order to build anything. And so my core philosophy would be that when the mother is in a really good place in all areas, right? When she is confident and comfortable in her own skin, when she's regulated, when she's filled up, when she's doing things that she loves, like all of that, it's going to automatically spill into her home. It's going to spill into her children. It's going to spill into her husband. And so my core philosophy is really helping mothers. Now, what that looks like is part of that is believing that they have it all inside of them already, the wisdom inside of them, which is maybe a little bit different than like I don't call myself a parenting coach because it's less about, I'm going to help you how to handle these behaviors or how to handle bedtime or how to handle sleep training or anything like that, and more about the mother, having the mother be in like a really healthy emotional, mental space, and then her own wisdom is going to come out. That would be how I would describe my core philosophy.
That's so beautiful. I love that piece of like the inherent goodness, truth, and knowledge that a woman already has. That's so empowering, right? To know that I have it inside me.
Yeah. I feel like parenting has kind of become something that we feel like we have to externally learn. Like there's shelves and shelves in the library, and there's podcasts, and there's people, and there's classes. And I think that it's beautiful and it's great, but not when it's coming from a place of like, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm doing it wrong. I'm not good enough, like any of that, versus like, no, I have it all inside of me. Like if Hashem gave me these children and this ability to be a mother, he also gave me everything I need in order to parent these children. So I kind of want to go back to like everyone accessing their own inner wisdom.
I love that. So when you're supporting a woman, you're helping her kind of like, it sounds like peel through the layers to find that inner knowing. Wow.
100%. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm going to go off script for a second. What do you find are some of the things, like what are those layers? What are the layers you have to peel through to get to to get through to this woman, to find her inner knowing where she starts realizing, oh, I know what to do about this child, or I know what to do in this situation. Like what's blocking her, or what's blocking a lot of the women that you speak to?
Yeah. So different things in different areas. What's blocking her from kind of like usually being her best self, so to speak, is a lot of like fear, I think, of like, am I doing this right? How's my kid going to turn out? Some version of I'm doing it wrong. Everyone else knows what they're doing and I don't. Like a lot of just external thoughts about the world around them and other people they observe instead of like getting really comfortable in their own body, their own skin. And then they can access like, who am I and how do I want to show up here? And what's my belief? What's my core philosophy? What's my, so there's a lot of that, I think, like external noise. I think also mothers naturally put everybody else first. And a lot of times what happens is they kind of lose themselves after they get married or have kids. They don't even remember what they enjoy anymore. They don't even remember what fills them up. They don't even remember how to get back to like realizing how important it is to take care of the mother. And when they are doing that, everything changes for them. It really changes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like somewhat anxiety, just like anxiety in general. Am I doing this right? Fears in general. You were saying like judging yourself a little bit, maybe. And
Judging yourself,
then,
comparing yourself to others.
right, the comparisons, and then the
Inner self, as they
sacrifice,
put it,
right? The other
right.
piece was like the sacrificing themselves, because it's nuanced, right? Like
Yeah.
on the one hand, you do have that element of, yes, you put yourself aside to take care of this. A lot of motherhood is putting yourself aside. So it's
Right.
almost like there's this invisible line that a woman just doesn't know to cross, like not to cross,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
It's so
helping
much
them draw
easier
their own
though.
line.
In order to put yourself aside, you have to be a someone, right? You have to be a self. And so
Yeah.
it's so much easier to put yourself aside when you're filled up, right? When there's a you that is so full and you're like, now I'm going to put that fullness. It's like it comes with you on the side. Like, okay, that sounds like a really funny way of putting it. But like, you know, these overused cliches of like you can't give from an empty cup, but like literally I was recently driving an electric car and it got to 0 and I got terrified. I'm like, what is going to happen? And I had to like, get to the next charging station and charge. And while it was charging, I was thinking like, this is what we do sometimes as mothers. Like we let ourselves get to 0, but we would never do that with a car or I mean, I did it, right? But like it's so terrifying. And I'm like, so it's so much easier to put ourselves aside when we have a full tank than when we're on 0 and then we're trying to do more from 0.
Right. Right. Yeah. I've definitely heard this idea before. Although I will say that for some reason, for me, just my personal experience, I thought that like that whole area of self-care, it felt very selfish to me. Like it was very extreme in my mind. It was like
I get that all
selfless
the
or
time. Yep.
selfish,
Yep.
like
Hmm.
and all that was selfish as
Yeah.
opposed to what I was doing, which is obviously selfless and amazing and everyone should be, applauding
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And then I was resentful for nobody applauding me,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah, I
very
get that a
relatable
lot about
experience.
self-care being selfish. Or first of all, one way you could do that is instead of calling it self-care, you could just call it taking care of yourself. Like you're taking care of everyone. You're just one person in that, in that realm. Um, I also look at it as like if it's for the sake of, like the way self-care becomes self-indulgent or selfish is when it's just for nothing, but we're doing it so that there's like a so that at the end of the sentence. It's so that it spills into my family. It's so that my kids and my husband benefit from that. And the third piece of that is I think that self-care is actually really hard, right? So sometimes we hear the word self-care and we think of it as like pampering ourselves, which is great, no problem there. But it's hard to go to bed early when everyone's staying up late and like the FOMO of like going to bed early because you need sleep. It's much harder to make a salad than to grab a bag of chips. It's like self-care is very, very hard. It takes discipline to be like, no, my family needs a healthy, happy mother. And so I'm going to do these things, right? So I think of it also as like a lot of self-discipline. And I love the quote about self-care that's self-care is creating a life that you don't feel the need to run away from. Because sometimes people really do
Survive.
feel like this life is too much for me and I can't, and
Yeah,
right? And like, what if we created a life that we love?
right. That's so beautiful. Also, that's so feminine. I also feel like that's just what Hashem wants, right?
Yes.
Doesn't want us to suffer.
Yeah. Dior and
Yeah.
Nata, that's like the job of our generation, right?
So would you say that if a mom is feeling overwhelmed, and is coming to you with just like the overwhelm of her life, would that be the very first step that you would direct her towards, or is there something else?
Um, well, a lot of it's kind of finding out where the overwhelm is coming from. I always say
Okay.
that stress and overwhelm, I call them like signal emotions, and they usually signal to us that something needs to change, right? Like the stress and the overwhelm, like I do not believe that any mother needs to live with stress or live with overwhelm as like her default emotion. So usually something needs to change. Now, it doesn't always have to be a circumstantial change. Sometimes the change is learning how to manage our mind and how to not just like be living with the thoughts we have of like, my life is too much and everything's crazy and I have too much to do. I don't have enough time. Like all that kind of stuff could be what is creating the overwhelm, or it could be that something very circumstantial in her life needs tweaking. So it really depends. It's not always like, oh, you're overwhelmed, let's up your self-care. Like it's not always the exact correlation.
Right, right. So, right. So it's basically unique to every person who comes to you. Like
I think so.
what
Yeah.
exactly is happening there?
Hmm.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I love what you're saying about sometimes that's not even the experience. Sometimes it's mental. Like sometimes it's
Yes.
just like beliefs
Yes.
that she has, or the
100%.
just that film that's going through her head of all these thoughts again and again. And
Yeah.
that needs to be looked at and examined.
Yeah. And even
Yeah.
if it is circumstantial, there is always going to be a mindset piece because you can change your circumstances, but if you're bringing the same brain along with it, right, then it's going to still feed you all the thoughts that create overwhelm.
Right. Right. Takes so much truth and honesty and humility to get coached, right? Like to really
Hmm.
look at your life and say like,
Yeah.
where is it? Like what is not working here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so challenging, but at the same time beautiful, so rewarding. It sounds like you hold a space for a woman to really see what is it? What's wrong here?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. So how do you, right, you're a shlicha, obviously a from yet, so I would imagine that as a life coach you bring some Torah values into the way that you teach women, coach women about the parenting and the emotional development and the thoughts in
Hmm.
your head. So how does
Yeah.
Torah inform you and what you do?
I mean, Tyra is the basis for everything. There's not one piece of working on anything that doesn't have Tyra and Chassidic attached to it. It just like doesn't exist, like I can teach them the concept of managing our mind and how to do that. And I have like a specific coaching tool and all of that. But like that is my Shalat Halev. Anything, anything that I can bring can only be in Tyra, right? We might
Mm.
have like some modern language or a different whatever, but it's all based in Tyra. So it's 100% brought in everything I do just because that's like who I am. So there isn't a way to separate, right, that piece of who I am. And what's beautiful is also I'm working with other Lubavitchers, I'm working with other Chabad moms. And
Mm.
so we have, a similar value system. So actually every year in my group, I actually create a different curriculum um, side thing. And like last year, for example, I actually did a whole curriculum on the book Letters for Life, which is emotional guidance from the Rebbe. So it was so fascinating to work through all the things we normally work through, right? Very typical things about self-doubt or comparison or decision making or just not feeling like you have a purpose, any of those things. But we work through all of it from the lens of like letters and stories and examples from the Rebbe. So it's all there, right? It doesn't have to come from any other source other than Tyra. And I feel like just maybe the tools or the way it's described or the way or some language is just to back up what's already there for all of us.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So I'm curious. I'm just going to go back for a second. For the mom who, let's say, has a lot of negative self-talk, right? So we were
Hmm.
talking about, right,
Yeah.
negative self-talk and I don't want to say self-hatred, but like it's a lot. And it could look like
Hmm.
that. Like if she
Yeah.
actually said that, she would never say those words out loud to anybody else, but she
Right.
somehow says them to herself, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So, so how to help her turn that around, right? If that's
Yeah.
her go-to and it's been like that for years and her thoughts are so enmeshed with
Hmm.
that kind of reasoning, what would you do to help her?
Okay, so our brain is very good at like as soon as we point something out to it, it's going to go, as soon as we tell it something, it's going to go to work to find evidence for all of that, right? So as soon as I tell myself, for example, I'm not a good enough mother, I'm going to go and find all the evidence for how I'm not a good enough mother. And our brain is like practice. We have like 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And there are certain ones that we're just constantly thinking. It's like a path that you just keep traveling and you're like, I know this hike by heart because I do it every single day, right? If you were driving on a highway and I asked you to count all the red cars, and at the end of our trip, I'm like, how many yellow cars did you see? You wouldn't know because you're looking for that thing. So the first step is to, I think, to really externalize that. The thoughts that you have are just thoughts your brain is offering you, right? They're a lavush.
Hmm.
There you go again, right? It's like Tanya tells us, they're a lavush. What is lavushim? You could open up your closet and say, this fits me, this doesn't fit me, this has a hole, this isn't the right season, and you could choose what you're going to wear. Now, on default, we just think our thoughts are true. We just think our thoughts are part of us, but they're not. They're sentences in our brain. And so we kind of literally like pull them out of our brain and look at them at the palm of our hand and create space between what our brain tells us and ourselves. So that would really be step one. And then we can kind of
Hmm.
come up with a different thought that feels, I always say, like a drop more positive, a drop more helpful, even 1%, even if it doesn't sound like a great thought, but you can still believe it. Maybe the mother that's thinking, I'm not a good enough mother, could have a thought like, it's possible that sometimes I'm a good mother, right? And as soon as she can like, can you believe that? Then she's going to start finding evidence for the sometimes it's possible, right? And I call it ladder thoughts, which is like if you start at I'm not a good enough mother and you want to get to like I'm a great mother, you can't just your brain's going to reject that every time you think it. So it's like a ladder of like, what's the next thought that is a drop, feels a drop better in your body that you can go create tons of evidence for. And then when that's your new default thought and your new, your new neural pathway, then we can get to the next one and the next one until eventually you can literally go from thinking, and I had this personally, where I thought I'm not a good enough mother. Like there's something inherently wrong with me, right? In general, to a completely different place right now. So I know it's 100% possible.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So getting to that place where you're slowly but surely finding the evidence for something slightly more positive. That's so powerful. Love that. And then what about this element? I'm just asking from my own curiosity because I know that I'm also just like a shout out to Rebbe Ginsburg and Your Awesome Self,
Hmm.
that book, right?
Love it.
So like
Yeah.
right, so there's an element of what she talks about there, which is the judgment in general, right? So even though, let's say in this example, right? So you're helping this mom get from the negative talk, self talk, which is awful and is definitely not serving her, and we don't like it, right? And we're getting her on this ladder of there's possibility for something else, and we're going to build that evidence to see what we could build towards ultimately, which is that I'm a great mother, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like channeling some more Hasidus into it. That's not me, right? Like it's still not good
Hmm.
to be judging myself all the time.
Right.
So do you talk a little bit about that, like that element of like not being in a state of judgment, and how do you help a woman get to that place of like letting go of the judgment in general?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first of all, when we can see it for the fact that we have a nefesh abahamis and we have a nefesh elokis. And so when we can see it for what it is, like that is my nefesh abahamis operating. That whole operating system is coming from there. And maybe like I always say there's three steps to change. And the first step is awareness. So the very first thing we have to do is even understand that that's what's happening, right? Because again, if you're so identified with a thought, you you see it as MS, right? You see it as truth when really it's just your nefesh abahamis running the show. So the first step is really awareness, and then the next step I say is compassion, because to give ourselves so much compassion it's very painful to walk around with a thought like that in your head, right? Like imagine walking around with like I'm inherently flawed or there's something wrong with me or I don't have it together and everyone else does. It's a very, very painful thing. And instead of like being aware of it and then being like, oh, go away, which is what everyone wants. They just want to like, okay, how do I get to the other side of this? I'm like, whoa, like let's just stop for a second and notice how painful it is that this is your story that your brain is offering you. Again, it's not you. right? It's not you at all. And so to help them shift from a Nefesh HaBahamis lens of operating to a Nefesh Elokis lens of operating, which is, as we know, we have inherent worthiness, right? We are a neshama. A neshama is pure and holy and isn't affected by any mistake that we make or any any of the self criticism and self loathing, like you said. So it's kind of a shift from how we even operate in the world.
Beautiful. Wait, what was the third step?
Oh, and then it leads to change. So the third step is change, but it like comes from like awareness and compassion, and then comes the change. And most people just want to jump straight to the change, or they have the awareness and they want to jump straight to the change, or they skip the compassion because they're like, oh, now that I'm so aware, let's stop this. Like people will sometimes be like, oh, I see this thought's not serving me. Like, what's a better thought? And I'm like, we don't need to jump to a better thought right now. Let's just pay attention to what this thought is creating and producing for you in your life. Sometimes you have to sit with what is to kind of release it.
Beautiful. I love that, how important that compassion piece is, because it's like the segue to actually make that change substantial and maybe constant, like
100%.
real.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so beautiful. It also goes in line with what you were saying before, which was kind of like that objectivity of like standing apart from that thought, right? So the compassion is also a little bit like, let me just put my hand over my own shoulders kind of thing. Like, this was tough. And so there's a little bit of like just making space for your whole experience and seeing it from an objective standpoint and a loving standpoint.
It's like, can we see ourselves the way Hashem sees us? Can we look at ourselves with that like loving, compassionate, from that loving, compassionate place? And one exercise that I love doing with the moms that I work with is like writing a letter to yourself from Hashem, because that letter is going to look so different than the letter they write to themselves about themselves, right? And so it's like so different to see like when we're coming from a place of MS and operating from that place versus when we're operating from a different operating system.
I love that. That's so beautiful. That's probably such an impactful experience to sit down and write that letter.
Yeah.
Wow. Gorgeous. So what do you hear back from women who are part of your group? Like, where are they advancing to? Like, what happens?
Yeah. Okay. So many different areas, but because like you said, if we're talking about motherhood, it covers so much, right? Even marriage and your relationship with your kids and your relationship with yourself and all, it covers a lot. So, each person might come for a different thing. The number one thing that is useful for people is the community of like, I'm not alone. It's like-minded mothers. And really what I want is like, I think of shtetl days when there was a village and we were raising our children together and we had the wisdom of other women, right? Chachmas nashim bansa besa. Why does it say that the wisdom of women, plural, builds her home? Is because it takes a lot of women to build your own home. And I think of that we used to have that. We used to have like the aunts and the sisters and the mothers and the friends and everyone doing it together. And unfortunately, now we live in a much more isolationist society. And I think we need that. We need community. And I think one of the most painful places to be is where you think you're alone, where you think I'm the only one struggling with this. I'm the only one who has these thoughts about herself. I'm the only one who, loses it by bedtime. I'm the only one who just can't get my house together and clean and organized. Whatever it is, right? All those things. And so even though on the outside that doesn't seem like such a big deal, like the community of the shtetl feel, it's been hugely impactful for a lot of people who are like, wow, for the first time I felt like I had a place to turn and wisdom of other mothers and the feeling of not aloneness. So that would really be number one. I love when I hear there's like one particular mother that I'm thinking of that really came with feeling completely uncomfortable in her own skin. And when that happens, you're fully trying to be in other people's brains, right? What do they think of me? Do they like me enough? Am I good? Am I doing this enough? Do they like my food? Do they like my personality? Are they enjoying this conversation? Am I doing this conversation right? Like all of that. And she like was able to just tap into being like, I'm okay with who I am. I'm, my own inherent worthiness. And then she gets to just show up as herself. So people are starting to love her for who she is, but she's able to give them who she is. She's able to give them herself, which is really what anyone wants in connection, right? Is the true you. And so now she just has conversations with people and will have them over and not be worried about what are they thinking of me? Am I doing enough? She's like very calm and happy and able to do more because of that. Another piece is that she reconnected to like her previous mom self, where she had all these passions and interests that just went out the window with motherhood and then with being a wife and then a mother and then shluchas. And it was very hard for her. She almost felt like, who am I? Like, I don't know who I am
Right.
anymore.
Like an
And
identity
so
crisis.
rediscovering that and then bringing it into her current life instead of thinking like, that was single me that can't have that anymore. So I feel like the two together has just shifted so much for her. I mean, I could go on and on, so I don't know how much you want me to go on and
Yeah,
on.
no, like lay it on. We want to hear everything. So that is incredible. So she was
Yeah.
not feeling comfortable in her own skin, just constantly thinking about other people. And she was able through the Chabad tribe. Yeah,
Yeah,
through
we actually
the
did individual coaching also, and now she's part of the
okay.
tribe. Yeah.
So like, okay, could you like walk us a little bit through that process? I mean, we're talking about it sounds like you actually did that ladder with her, right? So her thinking, I'm doing this wrong, I'm not like they don't like me,
Hmm.
like all that negative self-talk, and you basically brought her up this ladder to be to the ultimate, which is I'm so happy with myself and who I am, and just like I'm a shining light.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so gorgeous. So this is literally an example of what you were talking about before.
Right. And when I say like elevating Yiddish homes one home at a time, like this is exactly what I mean because it's completely different. Even her dynamic with her husband, he would maybe want more programs, and programs were so stressful to her because not the preparation for it, but like the being comfortable in her own skin at it. Why would you want to do more of that? Why would you want more people around you? And now it's like, sure, I get to do it in the way that honors me, the way that uses my personality, the way that, which is what people want anyway. So it shifted a lot of things for her, right? Like in her
Right.
parenting, in her shluchas, in her marriage to get to that place.
That's so beautiful. And it also
Mhm.
just shows like when a woman like that is second guessing herself, she's not really seeing her power, her impact. And then when you turn it around, and all she's done is just work on herself. But now, with the work that she's done on herself, she's impacted her relationship with her husband, her children, her community.
Exactly.
Like all of her roles, all of her identities have now shifted just because of the inner shifts that she's done. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And I feel like
so
the
beautiful.
big shift, maybe the big shift across the board that I would say that, because I said everyone comes for different things, but one big shift is this idea that, in life, I always say we're juggling lots of balls. This is a very, also used muscle very often. So we've got lots of different balls. Maybe we're juggling our job and our spouse and our kids and a passion, whatever it is, right? And some balls are rubber and some balls are glass. So some balls you drop them and they can bounce right back. When you need to pick them back up again or whatever. And then some balls you drop them and they're glass, they break, right? So I always say like our family is a glass ball, but the mother is a crystal ball. I'm like, you are the glassiest glass ball that there is. You are the crystal ball because you're like the most important cog in the wheel of your family. And again, it doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you self-indulgent. It doesn't make you anything. It makes everything better. It makes your whole family better when the foundation is strong, when the mother is in a really good place. So that would be a huge shift because that's not how we generally lean towards, right? We put everybody else first. We feed everyone and then we like are hungry and then we're snappy, right? We put everyone to sleep and then clean up and then do a million other things and then we're tired. Like we're just not used to treating ourselves as the glassiest, most crystal ball. But when we do, I think everyone benefits, everyone. And that's a perfect example
So
of
cool
what
how
I
you
meant.
took that muscle that everybody talks about, but you just like
Right,
elevated it.
right.
Yeah, that's such an important piece. That's great. So let's talk about that a little bit with like this mom, let's say this mother who's stressed, because Baruch Hashem, right? Is there a mother out there who is not stressed, right? And let's say she is trying to take care of herself, like she's speaking to you, she's part of Chabad mom's tribe, but she's in a situation where her child is melting down and everything, right? Everything's coming up for her, all the feels, all the thoughts, everything. So in the moment,
Yeah.
like, what can she do?
Yeah. So we talk about before the moment, in the moment, after the moment, right?
Okay.
So before the moment, I know you're talking about in the moment, and I'll get there in a minute, but before the moment, right? We want to like fill ourselves up as much as possible so we minimize those moments. Of course, we're going to have them when there's chaos happening in the house or tantrums or multiple kids that need you at the same time and you're completely feeling, overwhelmed and dysregulated. But let's just talk before that. The more we do in advance, the less those times will happen. So for example, right now in this stage of my life, all my kids are in school and they start walking through the door 4:35. And so I make sure that my day has enough things in it that when they come home, I'm like ready for it. I'm not like boom, boom, boom all day so that they come home and now I'm tired. Or, completely ignoring myself all day so that they come home and now I'm just like, last thing I need now is to deal with any chaos. I'm like fully ready for anything, whether that's going to be tantrums or that's going to be fun or that's going to be presents or that's going to be so again, not every single time, not always, but that's like a mindset. Again, when you think of the mother as the crystal ball, that my kids deserve that when they come home from school. So I'm gonna do things in my day that ensure that. Okay. So that's before the moment. Now let's say you're in the moment. Maybe even you did all that, right? Maybe it's not even because we have to look at the beforehand. Maybe you even did all that. And then it just comes that there's multiple kids tantruming, need you at the same time, and you're just pulling your hair out, whatever it is. So and you're dysregulated. So that's when I talk about regulation, that we can do so many things to regulate ourselves. And it doesn't always mean leaving the situation, right? Obviously, sometimes we're able to. We can leave, take a break in our room, lock the door, give ourselves 10 minutes, something like that. But there are so many nervous system regulation techniques that we can do while we're with our kids, even with our kids. I have a 5-year-old that it's called the 10 steps and it's like a 10-step regulation thing. And she screams for it when she'll be like, Mommy, do the 10 steps with me. And like, she knows like we can regulate together. So I want mothers to know that like you can do things to regulate yourself in the moment, not just before the moment.
Could you give
And
some
then I'll
examples?
take you to after the moment.
Okay.
Let's say you didn't regulate or you tried and it didn't work and then you didn't show up as your best self. Maybe you yelled at everyone. Maybe you had some kind of rupture in a relationship, whatever it was. What happens after the moment is actually the most important. Because if after the moment you beat yourself up and tell yourself you're no good and sit and wallow in self negativity, right? It's actually going to create, like we said before, what you look for creates more. You're going to create more of that. Versus if afterwards you give yourself a lot of compassion, like that was really hard. Maybe I had a really stressful day and like I didn't show up exactly how I wanted to. And that was really, really difficult. But my kids are going to be okay. Kids are resilient. I didn't ruin them for life, right? I can learn from this, right? A lot of times, like when we judge ourselves, we don't learn anything about ourselves versus when we look at it with curiosity, like, why do I think that happened? What would I do different in my next day? Right? Then there's learning and growth. So even the after moment is so, so, so important. Okay. That was a long-winded.
I love that again, like that compassionate, objective piece, which also is very hard to do. Like that step is really hard, especially when you know you did not show up well and you've had experience of all that self judgment. So to do that after the whole experience and you're probably still a little dysregulated is like each step is really hard.
Yes, 100%.
But really important. And each step also has an opportunity to redeem yourself. I feel like
Yes.
there's a positivity there. Like you could do something, right? An element that I know we talk a lot about is like I don't want to feel like a victim ever. Like I'm being controlled or things are just coming at me. So even when you didn't show up the way you wanted to, you can still do something. Like the concept of teshuvah. Like you could still return. You could still
Yeah.
change. There's something here for you to learn from, which is so beautiful. That's actually leaning into the hashgacha practice of that moment, right? It happened. It wasn't a mistake that it happened.
I think in some ways we do our kids a favor when we show them that we're human. Instead of like, imagine we were perfect all the time, and then they think that that's how they need to be as parents. But we always have the opportunity for repair. There's rupture and repair, right? Teshuva. And so it's okay to go back to a kid and explain what happened there, or, apologize, or whatever it is that you want to do to create some repair. But I don't think that expecting ourselves to be anything 100% of the time, but calm and not lose it and 100% of the time is just not realistic.
Right. Right. So interesting. Like, I'm just thinking about what you were saying, how it used to be, right? Like, takes a village. Like, there
Yeah.
would be a bunch of women there helping you, supporting you. You wouldn't be the only person
Right.
home
Right.
managing 6 kids at a time, you know? And
Yeah.
there would be all that delicious support of people
Yeah.
standing by you
Hmm.
and encouraging you. And even if you did mess up, they'd be like, it's
Yeah.
okay, you know?
Right.
So it's beautiful that you're bringing it to a modern world where we totally don't experience that, especially with secular culture, which is talking about the exact opposite, where you have to
Hmm.
be perfect
Yeah.
and you have to do everything alone and you have to be perfectly capable.
Hmm.
And for you to bring that element of just there is no perfection,
Right.
rupture should happen, and let's support each other through it is so real and so
Yeah.
necessary. I love that. So will you, I'm just curious, do you have like a WhatsApp group for the Chabad
I
Mom
have a WhatsApp
tribe?
group for the people in the tribe. Yeah.
So do people like will people just say like, oh, I just lost it at my kid, and then people are offering support throughout?
Hmm. Yep.
Oh, so
Yeah. Or
nice.
they'll share a win. It's the other way also. They'll be like, wow, thanks to this past week's call, I made a decision really quickly and then I had my own back on it and I was able to just like move on instead of like, spin and indecision. That comes up a lot. I don't know exactly why, but decision making and having our own back on a decision is like a big piece also of it. Um,
I get that.
but yeah, there's a whole WhatsApp group for all the in-between support.
That is so beautiful. Even knowing that there is a WhatsApp group, that like knowing that you're a part of something like that already bolsters your confidence to just, I could do
Yeah.
this, right? Instead
Yeah.
of like you were saying, like that isolation that so many women experience, especially if women are on shlichus.
Hmm.
You by definition are feeling alone because in many ways you are,
Right. Yeah.
just physically. Thank you,
Yeah.
Hashem, for WhatsApp and for, for
Hmm.
internet and for
Right.
connection. But that's a big deal. Talk to me a little bit about the indecisiveness. Do you find that a lot with women, that it's
A
hard for
lot.
them to make decisions?
It comes up all the time that people want to know how to be like a better decision maker or how to not like spin an indecision, or they make a decision and then they're like doubting themselves the whole time. It comes up a lot. Like we talk a lot about a decision making roadmap and how to make decisions and what to do after decisions, because I find that being an indecision is very, very exhausting and mentally consuming, right?
Right.
It's like when you have a decision to make, you're like holding a weight and then you make the decision and you're putting the weight down. But imagine you're like holding a weight out in front of you all day long. It's very exhausting. And so
Yeah.
it comes up a lot that we discuss and learn about decision making.
That is so interesting. I guess that is one thing
Yeah.
that I didn't have as much of a struggle with. Like
Hmm.
once I decided I'm fine with just sticking with it. So do you like talk to me more about that? Where do you think that's coming from? Is that coming from an anxiety? Is it a lack of confidence? Is it just what is that?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it could be a whole host of things. Um, a big thing is like this idea of thinking that there's like a right way. And I always say like there's right and wrong in Tyra, but like otherwise right and wrong doesn't apply to most things, right? So they're like, is it the right thing to take my family on this vacation, or is it like too much to schlep everyone there? And that's going to really trip you up if you're like, what's the right thing to do here? That's a huge one that trips people up.
I see.
Um,
Like black and white thinking.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
Very black
interesting.
and white thinking.
That makes sense.
The
Okay, I can
doubting
relate to
yourself
that.
after a decision does have to do a lot with, yeah, like the lack of confidence, lack of just being able to like move forward with your decision and say like, I'm going to stick with it. Because there's like a responsibility there, right? Sometimes we like to outsource our decisions so that if it doesn't go right, we could be like, well, that person decided it. right?
Right.
But I think it's a muscle. I don't think that, people are either indecisive or decisive and then you're just stuck to that. Um, I think it's like a muscle that you can really exercise.
Yeah, it's true. It takes a lot of leadership skills to like own a decision.
Hmm.
I hear that where there's a weight of responsibility to it.
Yeah,
And if a woman's taking that weight too seriously, it could make you not even want to engage
right.
with the whole decision making process. I totally
Yes,
get that.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I could imagine that coming up all the time for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since it's funny because I'm just going to bring it in because you said Chachmas Nashim Banza Besa, like we do have this element of conferring with, right?
Yeah.
Conferring with the sisters and the mom and talking it over with people. And we as women love to process out loud and
Yeah.
process a lot. So like there's some sort of like invisible line of there's processing and then there's you're just spiraling,
Right. Right.
right?
I think that there's a certain relationship with yourself and confidence in yourself that gets built when you can come up with your own truth or decision. And of course, you can then talk about it with other people or go back and forth or hear other perspectives versus when you're just coming with like no knowledge of like where you're holding in your own self and you want other people to kind of inform that. It is very
Mm,
nuanced, but it doesn't mean you have to make every decision yourself and you can't ever discuss it or you can't ever, but I do think that when you come to that discussion with knowing where you stand or what you want or tapping into your intuition, right? I back to that idea of like we have it within us. Um, then you can come to that conversation with a lot more, I guess, confidence.
yeah. Like ownership.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Um, that's really interesting. And that's so difficult also for shluchos, let's say. I'm imagining that a lot of the people that you speak to are shluchos.
In my group, I mean, I never really counted, but I think it's like 50-50 of like
Oh,
shluchos and like Lubavitcher women, from all over the world.
wow. Yeah, because shluchos technically are those leaders and are stepping into like that rebbitzin role. They need to make tons of decisions on an everyday basis. A mom also has to, but I'm just saying
Hmm.
someone who their job is to be the leader in the community, that's very complicated. And then
Hmm.
throw a husband into the mix also, everything gets
Right.
complicated with his
Right.
opinion and what he thinks. And
Yeah.
okay, I get that. Um, so what patterns are you seeing in moms who successfully change the dynamics in their homes? Like, what do you see is working?
Yeah. So a lot of like what we discussed, they are learning how to be stronger decision makers. They're learning how to fill their own cups so that they can be very, present for their kids. They're learning how to regulate. They're learning how to be kind to themselves and have, rachamim, have compassion. Um, they're learning how to tap into their own wisdom instead of need to constantly outsource and think that like the wisdom is somewhere else that everybody else has. I think they're learning how to pause between what happens in the world and how they're going to respond inside. So it's a lot of like, I feel like without the work of some kind of inner work or coaching or whatever it is, like we just operate on default. We have the same patterns, right? I think you speak about this a lot also of like our husband does something and we just operate with the same pattern, or our kid does something and it just triggers us the same way. And it really takes getting very intentional, learning how to manage our minds, learning how to like show up on purpose. There's a lot of intention and on purpose that then shifts what you do and how you do it. You know, it's like a silly example, but like we just had Purim. And so there's maybe what people think are like societal norms for what you have to do for Shachmanis, right? And so they've never questioned that. It's just like, this is how everyone does it. And so this is what I have to do. And then they're stressed out. They're feeling maxed out on their budget. It's overshadowing any kind of simcha, which is really what it's all about. And so once you stop and you question it and you say, 1 second, I've just never thought about it differently. But do I want to keep believing that I have to do what other people do? Do I want to keep believing that it has to be this elaborate? Do I want to keep believing that it must be themed? Whatever it is, right? And again, it's very individual but then like this one mother made such a change and was able, like she posted on the WhatsApp group how different her perm was and how much she loved it, right? So
Mm.
it's like these very small shifts that then create this ripple effect when you're getting intentional, when you're learning how to like really question unquestioned beliefs and unquestioned ways of behaving and showing up in the world. And then you question that, you show up differently. But it, again, it has ripple effects. Your shalom bias is going to be different. Your relationship with your kids are going to be different.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So being really conscious, intentional, and curious, it sounds
Hmm.
like where
Yeah.
you're questioning things, right? So there's like a
Yeah.
curiosity of, is this working and why is it not working? And what might be different if I switch things around a little bit? That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I keep thinking about, and I don't even know if we should bring this in, but I keep thinking about the woman who has a hard time with executive functioning. Like a lot
Hmm.
of this is talking about like intentionality and like preparing
Yeah.
and following steps. And I'm just thinking about the woman who it's hard to do that. It's
Yeah.
hard to do all those things.
Yeah.
So it just brings this like layer of extra challenge to
Yeah.
implementing what it sounds like from what you're bringing, which is very much like a Mayach Shalat al Halev kind of approach, where
Hmm.
it's like I'm looking at my mind and I'm seeing how that's impacting my feelings and how that's impacting my reality and my perspective and
Yeah.
the way I interact with people. So if someone is challenged in that area with the Mayach Shalat al Halev because they kind of just are, let's say, more impulsive, or they just they're not as intentional. Do you
Yeah.
try to teach them how to be more intentional, or do you just work with the way they are?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I had this one mother that kept coming to me with like, I need to learn how time management more. I need to learn how to be more organized. I need to learn how to be more on top of my life. And she just kept feeling like, I make commitments to myself and I never keep them. And like this whole thing. And she kept coming back no matter with that feeling, no matter how like she would work on this one little thing and work on this one little thing. And I said to her, I don't want to say her name, but I was like, this is your superpower. You're super, like, she's a phenomenal person, phenomenal shlocha, just such a great person. And I'm like, why? Again, if we're going to question society, why do you have to be all time managed? Why do you have to be all organized? Like, that's also a societal belief that, like, that's better. Instead of, like, yes, we can look at if there's any pieces that are being dropped, and we can talk about those little pieces, but in
Mm,
general, like this is your superpower. And I guess that's what I mean by like getting back to a woman's own self and intuition and getting in touch with that, because it's not a one size fits all. And that's another belief that society hands us, that like this way is better, productivity and constant growth and time managing and getting your to-do list done or whatever, right? That like that's better. And I think being you, right, bringing your kaiches to the world is what Hashem wants of us.
right.
So,
Like you're
yeah.
only effective if
Hmm.
dot dot
Hmm.
dot.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a beautiful turnaround. That was probably so like redeeming for her.
Very
Just
so.
like took a load off of her heart where she was
Yeah.
trying to be something that she's not, and just
Yeah.
not just embrace it, celebrate that
Yeah.
this is who you are and you do things differently, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. And even if she's like, well, I'm not getting dinner on the table on time every night, right? And let's say that just doesn't feel right for her. So we can figure out together how to do that. And it might look very different than the mother that's like planning her menu at the beginning of the week. And you know what I'm saying? So it's going to look very different because we want to use her superpower. Again, we don't want to like squash her. We don't want her to feel that it has to be a certain way in order to be a good enough mother. And that Zoom where she was getting coached, a lot of mothers were putting in the chat like I agree, you're amazing. It is your superpower. Like don't change who you are. Don't, and like it was really beautiful.
That's so special. I love that. Yeah, again, like these societal norms that are so oppressive in ways,
Yeah.
unless you fit that cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that's so redemptive. Okay, so this is like my last question for you because I'm very curious about this. What do you say to mom guilt or to Jewish guilt or just the word guilt in general? Because I feel like that
Yeah.
probably comes up a lot for you.
Yeah. So again, Tanya teaches us this. So like I said, everything's like based in Torah because there's just no way not to. But Tanya tells us, like, first of all, the difference between guilt and shame, right? Is shame is I am bad, I am wrong, and guilt is I did something wrong, I did something bad. So shame, I think, is pretty toxic, but guilt has a purpose. Guilt has a purpose to say, is there something I want to actually change here? Did I do something wrong? Did I do something right? And what does the Tanya tell us? Guilt is only as good as that moment of reflection, right? If you're wallowing in mom guilt for 3 hours because of how you showed up the 3 hours before, that's not okay, right? Like that's not useful. That's not helpful. Guilt is only for that moment of self-reflection of did is there a different way I would have wanted to show up here, or a different way I would have wanted to react, or a different way, right? So then it's useful. There is a purpose to guilt. And then what else that Tanya tells us though is like it can't be all the time and it can't be in the middle of your day. Like you could designate a time, usually by Kriya Shema, that you're gonna think about that, right? Which is so fascinating, right? Because a lot of times I think like specifically with the evening and the bedtime, then mothers are done and then they sit on the couch and then they sit and think about all the things they did wrong or how they didn't like. And it's like, well, we have a time for that. It's Kriya Shema. So it is interesting that like the time might correlate, but like save it for that and save it for just the moment of curiosity. It's going to take curiosity to come up with the value of the guilt, right? Which is like, how would I want to do it differently? Did I actually do something quote unquote wrong?
Right, right. Takes so much, like you were saying in the beginning, like this self-discipline.
Hmm.
Like this would literally be under that realm of self-care where you're just like taking self-care of your brain,
Yeah.
where I'm just imagining, right? Like, I don't know, you didn't get the kids to school on time and now they came late and the Rebbe texted you, oh, he missed Kriya, right? And then
Yeah.
for the rest of the day, a woman could just be feeling the heaviness on her heart because I set my kid up for failure today, right?
Right.
Something like that, right? And it takes actually a lot of discipline to say, I see you and
Hmm.
I'll talk to you later at,
Yeah.
Kriya Shema when the kids are sleeping and we're gonna have our guilt time, but not
Right.
right now.
Right.
It's a challenging, like how do you encourage a woman to now progress with her day without feeling weighed down by that guilt?
Yeah. So instead of again like that pushing away of it, I would like turn to it with curiosity and more actually compassion, right? Like, oh, guilt is coming and it wants to tell me something. And maybe right then at that moment, do I have the like little piece again that's just going to help shift it? Or like, okay, we'll look into this again later today or whatever it is. But to turn towards it with so much compassion, and then it can like soften. I feel like
Mm,
emotions soften when they're given compassion. And again, the realization that if we're going to continue the day with guilt, like that is literally a tactic of the Yetzer Hara. It's a tactic because what's going to happen then if you're wallowing in guilt for the rest of your day? You're not going to show up how you want. You're probably not going to get as much done. You're not going to like you're not going to be you in that day, right? And if we would sum it up in one sentence, the Nefesh Bahamas's goal is like get you away from your neshama shining, right? Let's
right.
not act that way. And your neshama shining is like really staying in what's true, which is right, which is maybe I want to like relook at that scenario and see, but like I'm inherently worthy. It doesn't make me bad and flawed. I don't need to sit and self-flagellate. I don't need to sit and pull myself apart, right? Like I'm a neshama, and like then you can move on, continuing as a neshama mother for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So there's like this compassion, there's the sitting with it, and the softening that will inevitably come. So I heard this
It's
from
great. Yeah.
Tiberi Nisbaum, this concept of like when the guilt comes, it also shows on how much you care. Right? Like the flip
Mm,
side of that guilt is like
yeah.
you care so much. That's why you're so invested in this. That's why your mind
Right.
is reeling and your heart is,
Yeah.
pounding because you care. So it's part of like that compassion piece I think that you're
Yes.
bringing up
Yes.
where it's like
Hmm.
that's beautiful, right? You're a
Right.
mom who cares, right? At
Yeah.
least that like you're not passive or numbed that you don't
Hmm.
even care. So
Right.
that's a
So that's like, I
compassionate way
think
of
also a
looking at
beautiful
it.
example of like tending to the emotion, right? It's like
Mm,
you have guilt in your body and then you can tend to it by acknowledging it that like it's there and when you're able to come up with like, it shows how much I care, right? All the guilt can then like, it doesn't hijack you the same way. It can like soften back to the softening. And then with that
mm.
softened guilt inside of you, you can move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm just going to say this because I think when someone hears this and they're like, who's got time for all that, you know? But it doesn't take so long if you just give yourself a compassion for like, I don't know, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, just think about it for a minute. You know,
Right.
you dropped off the kid and you're overwhelmed with the guilt, or you got that text message, whatever it is, and you're overwhelmed with the guilt. To just give yourself that compassion for what, I don't know, 45 seconds, it still
Right.
softens, like it helps.
Yeah, 100%.
You
I
don't
I
have
mean,
to
I
like,
always want people to know it doesn't take time to feel emotions. Like you can feel emotions and continue your day, right? And
right.
like I even say, if you're with your kids, you can feel frustration in your body and still show up intentionally. Like frustration doesn't mean, and now I have to yell, or and now I have to, right? You can just you can it doesn't take time to feel emotions. They're inside of you. Even
Right.
giving yourself compassion doesn't have to take time out of your day. I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah. And even if it's like a new skill, like you've never done it before, so it might take some time to like start
Right.
feeling comfortable with it. But it's like you said, it doesn't take time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
You
like give
can,
yourself a
you can
minute.
take time for it, but not like I wouldn't say, "Oh no, who has time for that? I can't do it." Right? I wouldn't
Right.
want that to stop someone.
Yeah. Some modalities say that you have to really sit with the feeling. And I haven't explored them, so I really shouldn't be talking. But I like what you're saying, where maybe sitting doesn't have to take so much time. Like
Hmm.
sitting, whatever that is it doesn't have to be a half an hour or an hour, or you have to go on a
Right.
hike and take off the whole day. You know, it
No.
could also just be like what you're saying.
Hmm.
Just give yourself a
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I love
So
like
I
just sometimes
want,
like putting a hand over my heart and just being like, "This is really hard. I'm so sorry." That you had this experience or that this person said this thing to you or like just I'm so sorry and you just give yourself a little love and it softens and you can move on. I mean, it might come back and it might whatever it needs to do, but it's like what did that take? 3 seconds to just yeah.
yeah, acknowledge where you're at
Mhm.
and move forward.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Um, okay. So I'm gonna close with this a little closing question. If if you could, if there was one thing, right? If there was one message that you wanted to send out to moms all over the world,
Yeah.
what would that be?
That they are the asset. They are the asset in their family. The more they do to again fill themselves up, to feel amazing in their body, to show up in the world how they want to, do things that nourish them and give them passion and they enjoy. The more of that happens, the more it spills over into your family and everyone benefits. Your kids benefit, your husband benefits, the atmosphere in your home benefits, the joy that's there, the fulfillment that's there. And so I want mothers to know that they're the asset.
That's so beautiful.
We protect our assets.
To cover your assets. That's 100% true. And be that crystal ball, right? Like own it.
Yeah.
Be it.
Yeah.
See yourself as that.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom here that you shared, Adina. Thank you so much. I wanted to like interrupt each time with every truth bomb, but I didn't want to interrupt. But there's so much beautiful content here, so much to think about, and it was so nice to hear your perspective. So thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing.
I feel very honored to be the first person that's not a relationship world person on the podcast.
Right? Well, there's so much of what you're saying that I deeply believe in. There's
Yeah.
also a lot of what you're saying that I never heard of and was new to me. So it was like so nice to hear your perspective. But I see so much overlap, and it's
Yeah.
so nice to meet someone who does something
Hmm.
similar to what I do and is just
Right.
as inspired to spread the light that
Yeah.
I have come to know through
Yeah.
Torah, through Chassidus, and also see someone who's practically implementing Torah and Chassidus and bringing that to people in ways that it's in nuggets that they could be pragmatic about.
Yeah.
Like there's learning Chassidus, and there's let's say a woman makes time to learn Chassidus, and that's beautiful. But how does it
Yeah.
impact you? How does it change
Right.
you? Is it relevant to your day-to-day life? School, carpool, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I think
love that. I
more and
love,
more teachers are teaching in that way to realize that like it's not like a subject, it's our life. I think
Yeah.
that's coming out a lot more. Yeah.
And you're one of those teachers, so thank you.
And I love what you do, Hindi, because I think honestly, like I actually think shalom bayis is the main thing ever. Like all bracha comes from a strong marriage, and it's like it's literally the most important. Like I kept saying the mother's the asset, but like when is the one piece and one huge piece of the mother being able to be her best self is when her marriage is strong. Because when not, you're like crumbling, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.